Today on the Three Gorillas podcast, the Gorillas will be discussing the 4th of July weekend 2025 Texas floods. We're talking real nightmares. You have found the Three Gorillas podcast. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to the Three Gorillas podcast. As always, my name is Greg Lawson. I am here with retired Captain Joe Escribano. How are you doing, Joe?
I am doing great, Greg. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, man. And also Major Mark Sawa. How's it going, Mark?
Evening. Good evening, guys.
Man, I did not want to do this particular episode, but I think it's important that we do because I sit back and I listen to the news and I watch things on social media. And, you know, there's some people that are just stupid and they're going to just make stuff up and going to be completely uninformed how things work. But I wanted to bring you guys on because I know we all have experience with flooding being in Central Texas. We've been working this area for multiple decades, some of us since the 70s. And I kind of wanted to just touch base with this because there's just multiple flooding that we've had here in Austin and in Central Texas and down on the coast. And it seems like for so many people, every time this happens, it's a big surprise. It's like, oh, there's water here in Texas. And we have a huge history. And I know you guys have had to deal with it just out at Lake Travis and also in Austin and surrounding counties. So I thought we would bring this in just because of the 4th of July floods that we just had.
Fantastic. Very good.
You know, as long as we've been doing this, the thing that I think there's a philosophical difference with a lot of different people on what roles public safety has in whether it be fire, whether it be police response, people getting injured, drownings, that sort of stuff. And I know it's been really, really frustrating for me. 32 years working at the sheriff's office in Austin, Texas, and the back and forth that happens with each administration on, how they want to go with their response. And there's always been this conversation between law enforcement, fire, and EMS. And my whole argument to the whole thing has been most sheriffs, when you boil it down, will say fire has the responsibility for swiftwater rescue. They have the rescue trucks, they have the equipment, they have the training, they have that sort of stuff. The problem with that is so often the fire trucks are at the firehouse. And when you call them, it's going to take them a while to get there. And all of us know that with the water in Texas, if you don't get there in the first 3 to 4 minutes, that person is dead. You're not going to recover that person. If we were up in Michigan, in the Great Lakes, they might be in the water for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and we could get them out and perform some really good follow-up treatment with them, and they might survive and might not have any problems. So that's been my contention is you got a deputy in the district, and he's got 7 or 8 low water crossings that he's supposed to check on an hourly basis and get barricades set up and all that so people supposedly won't cross them. But what do? They drive up to the barricade, they look, and then they drive around the barricade and go, I think I can make it. And they try to get across there. Well, fire's not going to help us at that point. EMS is certainly not going to help us. They do not. They have some good training over there. But once again, also with the city of Austin, there's very fickle, right? They have some spec ops people that can do that, but they're regular people, the physical fitness standard to be a swiftwater rescue technician is not there. There's a higher level of standard there. And so I kind of wanted to get with you guys, and I know y'all have seen both sides of this. And am I wrong about saying that we should spend 10 hours, 20 hours a year with deputies to, get them through a introduction to swiftwater, not just an hour on how you throw a rope to somebody, but the other side? Mark?
Well, no, you're not wrong. In the same way that a deputy would be could be and would be, certainly would be the first responder to a medical emergency, having the tools and the training to deal with that. The deputy is the first one to respond to a dangerous animal. There's no animal control that's going to beat that deputy. So they got to have the tools and the skills and the knowledge base to deal with that. So anything else that deputy could be a first responder to, they have to have some knowledge base. They have to have some training in order to deal with that particular situation. This situation, of course, you're talking about human life hanging in the balance with just seconds, in sometimes minutes more than likely, but just few minutes in order to do something very proactive in order to save that human being's life. So they certainly should have that training. Beyond that, with that training, not only affords them the opportunity, the better utilization of the tools to save that person's life, but also diminish or negate those factors that place their own lives into jeopardy. And understanding the dynamics of swift water and how water moves, the dynamics of low water crossings here in Travis County. So there's a whole bunch of stuff to know regarding it. And again, it's not just simply to save that person's life, but also to diminish the opportunity to place their own lives in jeopardy, or some other third party that's there to intervene in that type of situation, which happens all the time as well. So no, you're not off. As a matter of fact, it's appropriate. It should be a baseline training, maybe even something in the academy that you can enhance further on through in-service training.
Joe?
Well, I mean, I get it what you're saying, Greg, but the reality and what we do are two different things. And let me just take you back. Let me walk you back. All three or two of you are familiar with the water rescue kits that are in the patrol cars. Okay. Now, when they issued those, the big yellow box, it's pretty. Travis County spent a pretty penny on those. And what do they contain in them? Well, they have a throw rope. They have a flotation, automatic flotation. They have a couple of other items inside there. And you get about a presentation that show up, and that's about the extent of your training. Problem with that is, like, again, the throw rope, I have seen people even in training chunking the rope. No, the whole back, and not even holding on to one side of it, which is the way you're supposed to do it. Also, they forget that you can pendulum, and you should pendulum somebody out of the water, meaning that you're trying to throw the rope them upstream as they're coming, so then you can pendulum back in. You also train people that make sure that you got a good tree or something to put that thing on, because the swift water is pretty dramatic and it might rip you inside with the person that you're trying to rescue. All those things that we learned in swift water technician school, the average officer it's just not there. Fast forward, we went ahead, and now, back in the day when we started, how many tourniquets did we have in our vehicles? We had none. Zero. And now you see every officer literally has one of those things on his vest. It's a matter of training, and we're just not getting it. We are in flood alley, but like everything else, people forget. We have a drought for 5-10 years in Travis County. Everybody forgets that at a snap of the moment, which you saw it, and you've seen all the videos. We saw all those horrible videos, it coming up in minutes. It was already up, and it was already too late. The other thing, too, that was brought up, again, how fast was this? How prepared were these? You're going to have all the Monday morning quarterback, but the reality, like me and Mark discussed earlier, was that it happened at 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning when everybody was asleep. And no matter how much calling, whatever you had in place, If you weren't paying attention, oh, well, your cell phones. Well, do you get those Amber Alerts on your cell phone? Yeah, I do. When I'm sleeping, yeah. Do I pay attention to them? No. Here we go again. But in law enforcement in general, and you learned it and I learned it, we don't get swift water training. I was honored that you taught me swift water training, and I still remember that training in New Braunfels, doing it in those, hydraulics and the waterfalls, which is nothing compared to the real event, which I have been in the water in a real event, and it's just completely different. And you taught the class after we had that event. And in the class, the first thing you told everybody is, in swift water, what do? You don't get in the water. That's the number one rule. You don't get in the water. So, how can we train people? Is it realistic, Mark? We have alert training because of an event that occurred. We all know. And now it's trying to alert you to death. However, we took that training, okay, long before that, we were training in Travis County. Qualifying in that event that happened. But then people start to forget until you had a catastrophic event. See where I'm going with this? So it's like Mark said, if you don't have something in place, mandatory or something like that year-round, it's not going to happen. And in Travis County, one more thing. In Travis County, we used to have water training. We take people to a pool because a female officer went ahead and drowned in San Antonio, and we had one of our officers and his body fell in the water with all her gear. So then we had that training, and it was the emphasis for that training. And guess what? Are they training in that anymore? No, they're not.
Now, let me, you're talking about the swift water training. Let me play a video real quick.
Sure. That was a great video.
Now, so that was after the third Swiftwater incident. And in my career, there was one in the 80s. And the sheriff's office, we did a little bit of training. And toward the end, we were doing the actual drown proofing training for our deputies because of what you said. I was gone for a little while, came back in the 90s initially. Can't remember what year it was, but we had a Swiftwater or a flooding incident there where people lost their lives. And we, got the training instilled again. And then a few years go by and so an incident happens again, and we gear up to do Swiftwater training. And that's where that video came from. So there's 3 times. And what happens is politically, the news and all of the talking heads and all of the Monday morning quarterbacks lose their minds on, how did you not see this coming? How did you not prepare for this? How did this catch you unawares? How did this happen? You're incompetent. You're incompetent. You're incompetent. And so all of these organizations will then find $20,000 and they will set up training like this. They will send their people to the training. And I say their people, less than 10% of their entire staff will go through a technician Swiftwater rescue training. And then you send the budget line items of, it's going to cost $40,000 for my gear to equip 18 people?
If that. It probably costs more than that now.
And then they decline it and they go, well, if we spend $100,000 on getting this done, and this only happens every 5 to 8 years, it's just not worth the money. I know, Mark, I know you've been in those budget meetings, and it's that thing. It's like, you don't want to spend 10 hours of training time to teach deputies how to write a report if only 10 of your deputies can't write reports and the other 300 can? So you don't want to waste that time. In this case, there's so few amount of people that do drown. They look at it from a budgetary standpoint and go, well, you know, that's going to cost us a lot of money, and what is it worth? And so they start cutting line items, and pretty soon it's like, it's been a couple of years since we had that flooding incident. Let's move on and do something else. And that was one of the things that was just so frustrating to me. And I don't blame them either, because you have deputies that want to go to the training, right? You got volunteers all day long. They go to the training, and that's all they want. They don't want any more of that, because it's hard and you inhale a lot of water. So after I saw this, matter of fact, for what it's worth, Ken Larson, he was with Fire and EMS. I've done some other work with him. He came out and did some work with us as far as underwater drone stuff and at the underwater recovery team, the dive team. He's now with Task Force 1 and is a fireman for CODA. So he's one of the rescue guys for crashes on the racetrack at Circuit of the Americas. I just contacted him. I wanted to bring him on the show today, but he's in a helicopter above Cow Creek right now, or at least he was 20 minutes. And they're still, doing assessments on all the damage and where are they expecting more rains coming from, and how is the already saturated ground going to handle it.
You said he's on Cow Creek. That's where the fire chief, Marble Falls, I believe, went ahead and went under. I talked to somebody that knows about the event. Think about this. There was an officer behind him. He was responding in his Jeep. He had his, I don't know what they call the firemen when they put their fire pants on. It has a certain name. I forgot what it is.
Bunker gear.
He had his bunker gear half in the Jeep. Officers following him, and he misjudges. I want you to think the analogy here. It's dark, and he's going, and he misjudges the low water crossing and blasts through. The officers behind him. The officer sees that he gets caught. And he stopped so far and just sat there and could not do it at all. And it was over. They found the Jeep all mangled up. Cow Creek runs all the way, several hundred miles, a couple more miles now. There's no exact mileage, but it runs into Track County. And that thing is running hard. Where is he now?
Right. He's in Lake Travis.
Where?
Yeah. And that's horrible, because if you have half your bunker gear on, that's probably a 60-pound weight.
They ripped his bunker gear off. They found his bunker
okay.
gear. They found the bunker gear, but he was nowhere to be found.
Well, he probably got out of his bunker gear because he knew that was gonna just do it. But there's a lot of people that don't understand what this is. So there's only one natural lake in the state of Texas. Everything else is man-made, but Texas has a lot of rivers. Sometimes those rivers constantly flow, sometimes they don't. I would like to just for those that aren't real familiar with this, I'm going to play this video, and then we'll discuss a little bit more as far as the challenge that law enforcement, fire, and EMS has having to deal with this stuff that has gone on forever.
This is where it begins, the Colorado River. This is West Texas, where the wind seems to blow constantly and where the rain rarely falls. But at times there is enough rain to create a stream. And that stream becomes a river.
The Colorado is many things and flows through a lot of conditions throughout and land throughout the state of Texas. But part of it is, especially as it flows through the hill country, that's an area that has been come to be known as Flash Flood Alley. Unfortunately, the land up in that region doesn't have to take a lot of water. In fact, it can't tolerate very much water for very long. If you don't have a way to control those flows, it can become a runaway, uncontrollable flood.
Those runaway floods were very much a part of Austin's history, a battle against the often wild Colorado. The first attempt at controlling the river came in 1893. Workers built a 60-foot high, 1,200-foot long granite dam just west of the city. The dam provided water power for electric generators, and with that, Austin became one of the first electrified cities in the U.S.
It was so phenomenal and so noteworthy that it actually made the cover of Scientific American magazine, not once, but twice.
But the dam wouldn't prevail against a swollen Colorado. 7 years later, a surge of water from heavy rain smashed the dam and flooded the city. It was rebuilt in 1912, only to crumble 3 years later in a flood that claimed 60 lives and destroyed 1,000 buildings in Austin. Finally, in 1940, effective flood control for the city arrived with the construction of the Tom Miller Dam, one of a series of LCRA dams that regulate the Colorado River as it flows through Austin. A second dam east of downtown, Longhorn Dam, was completed in 1960 and created what's now known as Lady Bird Lake. And next time you drive down Redbud Trail by Tom Miller Dam, you might take a quick look at all those granite stones in the water. Those stones were once part of that first dam that collapsed in 1900. Bob Buckaloo, KVUE News.
So you see that this is not something that's new at all. They've been trying to control the lower Colorado. People get confused. The Colorado River, that's up in Nevada and
Colorado, Utah.
Yeah. This is the lower Colorado. It was actually mislabeled on a map back in the 1800s, and we just stuck with it and just called it the lower Colorado. But it shows right there. I mean, it's a very flat area, and when you get that much rainwater and it has no place to go, that's the problem. Up in the Fredericksburg area, Kerrville area, there's one, a lot of limestone, and two, a lot of pink granite. So it's not like it's raining in sand or sandy loam or clay or something like that. It's just raining on a big brick.
Pretty much.
And it is not soaking it up, so it pushes it south. And it comes to us. It comes to New Braunfels. It comes down that way. And it's terrifying when you see it, because when it's raised and when it's coming up that quickly, the only thing you can do is get out of there.
Totally insane. Totally insane. And we've had events here in Travis County too, like, Jessica Hollis. And Jessica Hollis, again, just like I told you about look at the analogy here. You have the fireman or the chief going on 1431. He misjudges a low water crossing. It's dark, can't see, boom, here he goes. Same thing with Jessica.
Yeah. And Jessica's part of Jessica's responsibilities was to go and check that low water crossing. You gave her eulogy there, which you did a fantastic job.
Thank you, Greg.
Honoring her, because it was a horrible situation.
The part that made that horrible again, and then when I found out about the officer or the fire chief that did it's almost replicating. The difference here is that on Jessica, I don't know if anybody knows this, but when you hit a low water crossing, you're in a vehicle, that's considered by DPS a collision. It's worked as a collision, nothing more than a collision. And so I got to do the collision, lucky me, and I got to review the video, which was one of the most excruciating things I've ever done, because you're listening to everything. And she was extremely calm, but it became very apparent as she's approaching that low water crossing. It's the building. Remember, this is Steiner Ranch. All this area out here had been overbuilt. And before they put that low water, the markers were there long before that. So they were outdated. So when all that water started rushing down, it was a false sense. Oh, it looks like it's maybe lower than a foot. And that was not true at all. It was a lot more than that. And when she committed and she sees that she's making a mistake, you can see, of course, the video, it picks up all the stuff in your car. You could see her, she's slowing down, but it was too late. It caught the front tires and it literally sucked that car in. She turns around almost 360 as to where she was coming back, or 180 as she's coming back, then turns around and then goes over trunk first, and you can literally see the camera pointing up to the sky. It hits. She's on the radio, extremely calm. She was a diver. She worked at the dive team. She's done recovery, so forth and so on. Says, dispatch, I'm in the water, da 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 da. She gave her location, everything else. I just went over, and she starts floating down, and then you can hear her. She did one expletive. And then it appears, because I can hear her. I can hear her equipment. I know what it sounds like trying to crawl out the window, which at that point, she's stuck in a tree is a mistake. And because she has all her gear on. But then again, I wasn't there. People react in different ways. And then she dropped, like that whole creek goes downwards. I mean, really, really vertical. She traveled then into the water. Then the rest is history. We went ahead and recovered later, but it was tragic.
Yeah. And even prior to that, we were doing the drown proofing training out at Wells Branch, where we would get deputies with weights on them, with a pistol belt, with a slicker or rain jacket. The deputies have full rain jackets that go past your knees. And so you go in the water with that. If you don't have a really good plan on how to get out of that, that is an anchor and it's going to kill you.
And if you panic and if it's dark, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
And they just don't train for that kind of stuff too, which is really, really tragic.
Yeah. And so I something that was really frustrating to me is after this was the flooding incident that led up to the Swiftwater video that I just showed. We had a big flooding incident, and I was a detective at the time, and we had assigned areas as detectives. So when something happens, you go to that assigned area. And so I threw my uniform on real quick, and I went to 812, FM 812 at 1:30. Now that's right at the Circuit of the Americas, and it is a major, right? 130 is a major tollway. It is 2 to 3 lanes north and south, separated by bridges. The 812 goes underneath 130. I don't know what the clearance is there, 30 feet? I don't know, 28 feet, 30 feet, something like that. And when I got there, there was a little stream going under 130. Within 15 minutes, it was 6 feet deep. And there were 3 brothers that were working at Circuit of the Americas coming down 812, heading west on 812. And they tried to make it through that water. And that water pushed their white van up against the guardrail. And 2 of the brothers got out and made it to shore. The third one was very heavy, and he could not get out the window in time. I get there. He is 4 car lengths or 4 lanes away from me on the other side, and he's sticking out of the window. The water in the next 15 minutes raises another 9 to 10 feet. So we just stood there watching this go up. As I'm standing there, a Spec Ops EMS lieutenant or commander comes down, and he's got a Zodiac boat. And I saw him pull up, and I'm like, let's do this. I ran and grabbed my Swiftwater gear, my technician Swiftwater gear out of the trunk. And I said, hey, I'm a Swiftwater technician. I teach it. You ready to go get this guy? And he just looks at me and goes, I don't have any gas for the boat. So they bought all this equipment because this kind of thing only happens every 5 years. They buy all this equipment, they spend some money on training, then they stage their equipment. And fire and EMS are much better than law enforcement about maintenance. They're really good about keeping their equipment up. And fire does a great job. And in this case, EMS did a great job, with the exception of they stored their gas off-site.
That's what firemen do. I mean, you don't store gasoline with all your stuff. You just don't do it.
Well, and this was EMS, and he didn't have any gas. And I was like, well, let's go get some gas. And he didn't have a gas tank because all the gas tanks had the gas in them.
Anybody have a hose? Siphon some gas out of something?
So we stood there. I stood there with a cup of coffee in my hand and watched this guy drown.
His brothers must have been out of their minds watching their brother drown.
Well, actually, the brothers didn't know because they went to get their mom. That's why it was over in that flooded area in Onion Creek. They went over there to get their mom out of their trailer house. So they got mom. But we just sat there and watched this guy drown.
Well, I had a similar situation. I'm headed to the command post where I, do my best work. And I went ahead and I was at 969 Agata School Road. And back then we're 130 in Round Rock. It was not 130. It was called 996 coming out of Pflugerville. I don't know if you remember that. It wasn't 130.
Right.
And if you went down, dispatch, I tell her my location, says, hey, just to your left, a guy and two gals went ahead and called. They're on the bridge. There was a bridge down there. And they're calling. I'm sitting on top of their cars. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, that's great. I don't have any equipment really with me, but I'll head down there. So I turned around, went down there. I remember there was a wrecker driver with his lights on. On the other side, there was a whole battalion of firemen, but they were so far away and it had expanded so much. There's no way they were going to get to these cars. As I'm pulling up, both cars go over. Two ladies and this guy that was talking on 911, and then they didn't hear him anymore. So there's a fence. I remember there's a field to my right. I tell the fireman, I take my gear off, most of my gear. I went to the trunk thinking, okay, I got a life preserver, but it was that cheap life preserver that they got at Academy, and they put in every patrol car that was half rotted out, but at least it was something. And then false sense of security, I jump the fence. I tell him, as soon as the firemen get here, call them. And all I was going to do is just run the river. I wasn't getting in. I was running the river, but it kept on expanding. And then I finally get to a point where I see one of the ladies is holding on to a tree. She's like, for dear mercy, holding on to that tree. Great. I have my flashlight. I see the firemen get there. And I'm shining my light thinking, okay, I'm going to have a whole crew coming, because it's a big fire truck. And two guys with a rope came out of that truck or met me over there. And I'm looking at them, and they got good vests. They got the helmets at least. I have nothing. So I said, well, you be the anchor, Joe. I said, okay. So I was going to be the anchor. Remember how we learned you go from one tree to the next tree to the next tree. So, oh, look at that. Cool. What a crew.
That's the gear you're supposed to have that you were just,
that's the gear.
Just
we had none of
it. You got boots, you got a wetsuit, you have a flotation device, you have a helmet, and you have a throw bag.
Nice. Well, they had all that. I had nothing. I just had my uniform, and I had taken off my vest and my gun and everything else so I wouldn't drown. But anyways, I'm holding on, and I remember I was like maybe knee deep, and in a matter of seconds, as he's trying to get out there to get to her, two firemen, one goes to one point, the other one goes to the next. They got the ropes. They're good. And they're trying to get to her. But that thing is, all I remember was the raging noise. It was so freaking loud. And I saw a couple of cows floating by that you can't imagine. And I'm going like, what am I doing in the water? Next thing you know, the water now is up to my chest. It's coming up. And I'm tied to the tree. And I'm going like, this is not going to work. And out of the blue, I remember a helicopter came overhead, shining this light. It's almost like the hand of God. And it was. Here comes this rescue guy, comes down, grabs her before the fireman even can get to her, pulls her up, throws her onto the side right there, takes off to go get the next rescue. Now I'm in trouble because I'm trying to get these guys back. It took them another 30 minutes in the water up to my neck until we got them back, pulled with everything I had, got them to the shore. They could not move. They were so exhausted. I was exhausted too, but I went over to the lady, make sure she was okay. She was stripped down to her pantyhose. It had stripped everything off of her. And I remember her the whole time apologizing. I'm going like, you just lost your best friend. I picked her up, did the carry 3/4 of a mile all the way back to where I could see the ambulance, dropped her off, and then I dropped. And after that, they said, hey, Joe, you need to go to Swiftwater Rescue School. I went, yeah, that's great, with no equipment. That's awesome. Crazy stuff. But if you look at Kerr right now, Kerr County, it's such a bigger event. I mean, this thing is so devastating. You have so many people that this is not something that, oh yeah, we're going to recover everybody. Oh yeah, we're going to go. You have to take it easy because it's a monumental task, of miles and miles and miles where these guys could be and the little girls, little boys could be anywhere. They have to keep going. I get that. But it's a monumental task, right, Mark?
Yeah, you have to understand too that again the way the whole structure of particularly Travis County. I mean, it's one of the most amazing things, and still amazing to me, when you have these dry creek beds in the middle of a farm field. There is no water anywhere around, and I'll give you a great example. You have Wilbarger Creek, Dry Creek, and Dry Creek. I guess they ran out of names when they were naming these creeks because they named 2 creeks Dry Creek. And appropriately so, because that creek never has a drop of water in it until it has a raging torrent.
Yep.
And all 3 of those creeks meet at Bidding School Road. All 3 of them meet
The genius of it, huh?
Meet
The
3
genius of
off
that.
of Bidding School Road. Now, finally, Travis County built a bridge on Bidding School Road, but circa 1989, 1990, and before, it was just a regular country road that dipped down in there. And I worked a scene where a 19-year-old FedEx driver in the middle of the night, 11 o'clock at night, delivering a package to someone out there on one of those farmhouses, pitch dark, not a light anywhere, of course, it's a farm field, hit that water, that raging torrent water, and turned over his FedEx truck, and he drowned. When I got out there, that water had receded. As quick as it rose, it receded. And here's this 19-year-old young man laying in a farm field with 2 inches of water around him. And when I had my overheads on, people in the area were coming down there and telling me this history. It was like I'm dealing with a guy about my age at the time, a 30-ish, who's grew up there, and he took over his dad's home, who took over his grandpa's home. So there's generation after generation of people who live on Bidding School Road, and there's just story after story after story of people drowning on Bidding School Road. That was the first of 2. And another case where it's raining cats and dogs in Pflugerville, where Wilbarger Creek is kind of at its maximum. And here's this raging torrent, like that video I sent y'all regarding the Guadalupe on this July 4th. And here's this raging torrent coming, rolling down into Bidding School Road in the middle of Manor, and not a drop of rain. Sunny as can be. And here's this torrent of water that came in from Pflugerville and wipes his car out, kills this 16-year-old boy. It defies explanation how that can happen. And then, like I said, finally the county built a bridge there. And I don't know if there's ever been any other situations where anybody's drowned on that road, but that road was treacherous, man.
So you sent me a video of the county judge, Kerr County judge. I'd like to play it real quick.
Judge, one of these camps evacuated yesterday. Texas Department of Emergency Management put out an all call and said there's going to be a problem. We knew there was going to be a problem. Why weren't these camps evacuated?
I can't answer that. I don't know.
Well, you're the judge. I mean, you're the top official here in this county. Why can't you answer that? There are kids missing. These camps were in harm's way. We knew this flood was coming.
We didn't know this flood was coming. Rest assured, no one knew this kind of flood was coming. We have floods all the time. This is the most dangerous river valley in the United States.
I agree.
And we deal with floods on a regular basis. When it rains, we get water. We had no reason to believe that this was going to be anything like what's happened here. None whatsoever.
Hold on, before you go on with that, there was the National Weather Service put out a report, and I have it right here in front of me. Let me read this to you, okay? Because he's telling the truth. Listen to this. The report came out at 1:14 a.m., and this is what they said. At about 1:14, Doppler radar indicates thunderstorm producing heavy rain across the area, okay, between 1 and 2 inches.
No,
That's not accurate.
it's not accurate.
Between 1 and 2 inches of rain have fallen and expected to have another 2 to 3 inches in about an hour. So all of that was wrong, but this is what they got. And that's what they're going by, right?
No, it wasn't. So did you see the PowerPoint I sent you?
No, sir, not yet.
Okay. Well, that PowerPoint will show you exactly what the National Weather Service put out. But there's a caveat that if you're camping, you are responsible for your own weather report. You're responsible for every bit of information that you have to rely on for your survival and your condition. You are 100% responsible for it. Now, those kids in that group home was responsible for them, or that camp was responsible for them. At no time is that county judge responsible for anyone that was camping out there. And that's across the board. But the very first notification, and when you see that PowerPoint, that very first notification came regarding this weather, or the potential of this weather, came on 7/2 at 7:30 in the evening on the 2nd of July. And in that PowerPoint, 15 hours before that PowerPoint, or 15 hours before that flood, 15 hours before the first report of that flood, the National Weather Service put out, and this was at 1:18 p.m. on July 3rd, heavy rainfall could cause flash floodings. Isolated amounts 5 to 7 inches in Kerr County may result in flooding rivers. So you should monitor this situation. This is 15 hours before. 9 hours before, they said atmospheric parameters are supportive of not just the potential of 3 inches per hour of maximum rain rate, but for backbuilding and training thunderstorms. That is training thunderstorms over the hill country. 4 hours before, the National Weather Service said hourly rainfall in excess of 2 to 3 inches seems reasonable. Localized 6-hour totals of 6 inches possible. Some flash flood impacts could be significant. 3 hours before,
which is midnight.
So now they're giving you warnings literally 2 days before, but the real warnings came 15 hours before. So we all know, and anybody who knows Central Texas weather knows, that the closer you get to the event, the more accurate your forecasting is going to be. At that particular time, 30 minutes before the first report of this event, it said flash flood emergency from the National Weather Service, flash flood emergency. Numerous low water crossings as well as the Guadalupe River are flooding. This is a flash flood emergency. This is a particularly dangerous situation. It is important to know that where you are relative to streams, rivers, creeks can become killers in heavy rain. Campers and hikers should avoid streams, rivers, and creeks.
And this how many hours before, Mark?
Now that was 32 minutes before the first report of the flash flood. So that's when they're getting the full impact of this. But 19 hours before, they were told that there's 5 to 7 inches. And if you get a report of 5 to 7 inches in Central Texas in one rainstorm, you've got a flood. So again, take away the responsibility or put the responsibility on any law enforcement agency, on any county entity, city entity, state entity. All of that is the responsibility of the camper and the individual that put themselves in that situation, except for those children who are under the care, custody, and control of those people responsible for that camp.
Well,
So
I will say
so
one
that falls
thing.
on their shoulders.
Yeah, and you know what? You're absolutely right. And how many times again people forget flash floods happen somewhere else, or I just forget. But the camp manager paid the ultimate price for that
Yeah,
too.
sure.
He tried to save those kids. As a matter of fact, he did save a lot of them. But God rest his soul. Tragedy it is, but I think you've got an excellent point.
There's another issue that's come up here in Austin is the fire association, Austin Fire Department Association, is calling for the resignation or the termination of their fire chief. They put together they put together a complete plan to deploy for mutual aid, of which he denied all of it, according to what I read online.
So that was preemptive before this event?
Yeah, they saw what was happening. They were watching the National Weather Service and all that. So they put together a plan, for mutual aid for Kerr County, and they put it together and presented it to the chief, and the chief denied it.
But at what point? At what point in time?
I want to say within 12 hours.
Beforehand.
Before. Yeah. And then by the time that they, went, well, I guess we need to do something.
Yeah, it's already.
What people don't understand is the horrific thing happens in 20 minutes. Then it lasts for 12 hours with all of the runoff. And then you go into recovery mode and try to go find these bodies, and people that don't understand hydrology, how water works, think, well, you just go out and find these people. No.
That's the hardest thing. I mean, I know you have, these are stages, the warning, the event, now the cleanup and the recovery. But the cleanup and the recovery, like anything else, is so unpredictable and so wide. And they could have gone just about anywhere. And we were talking about it. Canyon Lake is the first stop, but nothing says that they stopped at Canyon Lake.
Right. So I sit and look at this, and y'all know I have a certain level of passion, and then it turns immediately to frustration, and I'm like, screw it. All right, y'all are idiots. I'm out.
No.
I sit here and look at this and go, a 20-man swiftwater rescue team. We need a couple of rubber boats, a couple of engines, some gas tanks, some poles, some floaties, 20 sets of equipment for each one of these people. And they need, quarterly training for at least a day or two, developing their skill set and looking at what's the most likely scenario. Where are these locations? Like you were talking about, you look at where other people have died before and multiple times in the same time, like Shoal Creek. Remember when Shoal Creek used to flood all the time?
It still does.
It would be Shoal Creek and what was that, 10th Street or so? It would
Lamar,
completely.
10th and Lamar. Remember the patrol cars floating?
Yeah, Shoal Creek at 10th. It is. Shoal Creek at 9th too.
Yeah. And so that's where I need to deploy most likely scenario. Now that's going to change. You and I know that the clouds are going to do whatever they want to do, and they're going to dump wherever they want to dump, and the elements and all of the terrain is going to dictate what that water is going to do. But to me, it seems like it's a really responsible and good investment to have a team of 20, especially with the Travis County Sheriff's Office, and have it built into the SOP where when you get called out, you get called out. There's no excuses. Well, my shift is short. I can't afford to have them off. Whatever it is. No. When they're called out, they deploy. Yeah.
But you have to look, and I learned this from my dear colleague Mark. You have to go ahead and look at practicality. Okay,
Yeah, I agree.
practicality. But this is how you do it. You get who is normally back when I had the team and the dive team, we would practice once a month, regardless. You need it or not. The team gets together. We do whatever. We have it built in a budget of training. Go blah blah, all that good stuff. So everybody was on their toes once a month or once a quarter, however you want to do it. But who would you give that to? Well, think about it. I would give it to somebody like the dive team.
Yeah.
Because they incorporate in their diving, they incorporate the Swiftwater training for one day. So now every other month they're training in that, whether it floods, it doesn't flood, doesn't matter. You do a mutual aid with another county adjacent to you and tell them, hey, we've got a team. In the event that you activate the EOC, this is one team that has been practicing for the last 4 years and has done, of course, they do the diving most of the time, but you get the right boats too, because you and I know that just a regular inflator is not going to do. You get a regular inflator, that thing's going to go and pop like a balloon at a carnival, and you want something that has, it's inflatable, but it has a hard bottom that can go, and then you have people train, whether they're in or out, that's their gear that they're going to be issued, and that way you keep them proficient. Anything short of that, you're going to have no gas, the equipment's going to go to deterioration, nobody's going to pay attention to it, they're going to leave it in some closet, forget about it for 4 years, just like you do sub-munitions or the munitions when you have a riot.
Yep.
Same thing. It goes to hell unless you have accountability of it.
Unless you have leadership.
That is the biggest thing right there, Mark, but we don't have it.
Yeah, well.
Nothing against anybody, but you have to have that too.
I think based on your patrol manning, you look and you go, okay, I want 10% of my people Swiftwater qualified. Well, I mean, with 200 deputies on the street, Travis County, that's 20 deputies. So if you're in Williamson County,
often? It deteriorates. If you don't practice that stuff once a month,
Like anything else.
right?
Like anything else, you don't practice. If they're unled and they're unpracticed, they're going to go away.
Agree. And like you said,
nature.
Attach this to your underwater recovery team. Attach this to your lake patrol. Attach this to your aquatic specialists, the people that are around the water. And in like Williamson County, we don't have any big bodies of water. We got, there's a couple of lakes, and that's it. And so there's not this huge need, but we have a lot of rivers and we have a lot of low water crossings up
look
here.
at the St. Gabriel. That thing is a monster.
Well, speaking of the San Gabriel, since you bring that up, this is across the street from my house, about 400 yards. Let me throw this in here real quick. This is about 2 minutes. So can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So this is over at Hat Creek. Georgetown PD deployed their rescue vehicle over there, their SWAT vehicle. That water that you see that's right there is normally about 100 yards away from there, and it's normally about 25 feet lower. So that's how much water is coming up. Look across there. You can see the people all the way across. That water right there is probably, I'm going to say 22 feet deep. And you can see that right there. Normally to cross that river right there is 20 feet. You walk.
So is that Austin Boulevard?
Yes. That's Austin, the
Avenue?
Austin Bridge between the two San Gabriel rivers.
Uh-huh.
So you look at that. That's normally 20 feet across, Mark.
Yeah, I know.
Look at those people way over there. And that right there is about, I'm going to say 30 feet deep where it drops off.
Wow. That's
so
amazing.
when you drive across this bridge, normally you don't see the water at all. You really have to strain your neck or have to be in a truck to look down and actually see the water. What's that, Joe?
How fast does that water run?
It looked like to me it was going at about 15 knots. It was moving. This is not flowing as quickly as it was. This is further up near the hospital. This is surrounding all of the apartments there.
Yeah. There's a hike and bike trail down there.
Yeah, it was.
Covered by about 15 feet of water right now.
Yeah. And so, yeah, everybody's canoes and everything are all tied up over there, that big pile of kayaks. So when people talk about this and start blaming, look at this right there, 2 houses that are right across from the park. I'm surprised they're still standing, but they were far enough away from the main flow of the river that they didn't get as damaged as they would have. But you just don't expect that. You don't expect a rise of a foot a minute, and all of a sudden in 30 minutes there's 30 feet of water coming through there. It's terrifying. So the question is, all right, let's say fire keeps doing what they're doing. Well, how many people are working at the firehouse? It's not like they have a large amount of people working out of that firehouse or EMS. Law enforcement has a lot more people.
Swiftwater runs about approximately 169 feet per second. Mark, you go through the sky when you're falling and you're doing your parachuting. How fast are you falling?
It all depends on how my body's acclimated. If it's belly to earth, about 130 miles an hour.
And you're going.
Yeah.
And you're going.
And what you don't see, what people don't see, you can look online on this, look up hydrology and the flow of water. What you don't see is the actual column of water that's really moving fast. You don't see. It's down in the middle. You're seeing residual waves.
Yeah.
And it gets slower. Water is just like anything else. If there's any kind of drag, it's going to go to where there's no drag. So it goes to the center column, and it doesn't move that much down at the bottom or on the sides. It's that center column, and even on the top, you don't see it.
So that goes back to that Swiftwater rescue training and how important it is to see and then update it and in-service related and refresher training, but how important it is to see how that water is moving. And then that if you absolutely had to get in behind a rock, behind an eddy, how you could position yourself in a way that you can maximize the flow of that water so you can actually prevent yourself from being swept away or really negate yourself from being swept away by knowing how that water moved. Because I learned a lot in that class, and that was one of the things I learned. And Mike Kane, Joe went to the class with me with Mike Kane. You weren't part of the instructor corps on that class, were you? There at Redbud Trail at Tom Miller Dam?
I've taught over there with him before, but I don't know whether
it was wild. It was wild there, man. It was crazy there.
We actually did Swiftwater confined space rescue.
Yeah, that was fun, man. That class was a blast. But
one thing
anyway, that's where you really learned how that water was coming out of Tom Miller Dam and how it was going around those rocks that was once the Tom Miller Dam, the old Tom Miller Dam, and how that water moves and how you could get in behind one of those rocks and be standing perfectly still, actually be treading water, but move 1 foot around that rock, and man, you're gone.
And what you're talking about, you see people try to swim in that water. You don't try to swim. You put your feet downstream,
and you move with it.
And then you position yourself like a sailboat and use the pressure of that water to move you to one side of the river or the other. You don't swim it because you're going to drown.
Yep, you're going to drown. You use your feet. And I would like to say just, I'm sorry. I don't know who wants to talk, but I think we should have if we close, and we're going to close here shortly because it's almost been an hour.
Yep.
And just in memory of all those people, that, I think this program, we can dedicate it to the memory of all those people that went ahead and perished in that such a tragic event. And, all the other ones that we had too, that we've seen in our career. Because, officers unfortunately are exposed to everything out there. Most people are exposed to, and you guys the same, even these events like this, recoveries, people are exposed to maybe 3, 4, 5, earth-shattering events in their life. Officers on the average are exposed to about 800 events in their career or more. So
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. But in
Yeah,
their it's tragic.
And I think the only way to do it practically, to be responsible, fiscally responsible for the money that it's going to cost, is to dedicate it and have that team put that money in, put the training in, have good supervision that makes sure that your equipment gets taken care of. But we need to learn, I think, from people that really know what they're doing and have to deal with events like this all the time. And you look at Japan with tsunamis. Now, you don't want to look at India or Bangladesh or anything like that with tsunamis, or Thailand or anything like that. You want to look at Japan. They have, we have every Saturday here in Georgetown, right behind my house, the tornado sirens go off. What if there was a way to set up a series of sirens that would go down the river every 3 miles, every 5 miles, all the way down the river?
There's certainly a way to do that.
Yeah,
And,
I know it's expensive. And there will be rivers that you will never have to ever use them. But where it does happen, it might be worth some sort of federal money.
are you kidding? It'd be worth whatever money. That would be worth whatever money. And here's another issue too. There should be an ongoing command center that is manned 24/7, and wherever there's even the threat of weather, wherever there's the threat of anything that would require an emergency notification to first responders, that should be set up in this state, manned 24/7. And it's my understanding that this alarm system was voted down by the people of Kerrville. Voted down by them. So
they were going to have to pay for it.
Well, man.
And Mark, when car alarms first came out in the 80s, man, a car alarm came out, people would come out of their house and go see and to stop the burglary, right? Well, nowadays, if a car alarm goes off, nobody even pays attention to it. Same thing with Amber Alerts and that sort of thing. Not so much Amber Alerts, but weather alerts. I'll get one and I'll go, yeah, I can swim. I'm not worried about it. What's for lunch?
But but